I hope someone makes it home this time. Hello, interwebs! I hope you're all doing well, and I am extremely excited because I get a chance to finally talk about Quantum Leap, because I'm going to be reviewing the premiere episode, the series premiere of NBC's brand new kind of reboot, kind of sequel series to the classic Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell starring show Quantum Leap. How many times can I say Quantum Leap? I do these intros off the cuff, so I'm trying my best here. Anywho, like I said, I have been really excited to get to watch and discuss this show because Quantum Leap is a show that is really kind of near and dear to my heart. As you can kind of see here, I have the Season 1 and Season 2 DVDs right here. These are the DVDs that I bought back in middle school because I have been a fan of the show for most of my entire life. Just to give you a brief history of it, I actually discovered Quantum Leap after I discovered Star Trek Enterprise. I got really into that show after I sort of became a big Trekkie as a little kid, and one of my teachers at the school that I was going to, she's like, well, if you like Scott Bakula, there's this little show he was on called Quantum Leap, and she gave me all of her VHS tapes that she had recorded of the show. She was a big Quantum Leap fan, and I just fell down the rabbit hole with this show. I literally used to print out fan fiction of the series and put it in binders and read it all. I adored this series so much as a kid, and I've since gone back and rewatched a lot of it as an adult, and it for the most part still holds up, but in that deeply mildly problematic way. This show is intensely mildly problematic, and when I say that, I don't mean intensely problematic. I mean the show is intensely mildly problematic, where you're like, I see what you're doing, but I don't know if that was the right. That's okay. But in the most cheesy 80s way possible. Anywho, Scott Bakula's wonderful. Dean Stockwell was just so superb in that show. And like I said, mildly problematic by today's standards, but in again that sort of cheesy, oh, you were trying, and there's still some absolutely wonderful and amazing episodes of that show as well. So I say all that to say, when I heard that NBC was going to be kind of doing another version of Quantum of Leap starring Raymond Park, I believe is the actor's name, I was really intrigued because I still think there is a lot to explore with this concept of someone leaping into different people's bodies and sort of setting right what once went wrong before. I think that there's a lot of mileage you could do out of that. Clearly an anthology sort of series. It ultimately has an uplifting, positive message, which I don't think enough science fiction and TV shows have today. I also think there's questions of identity and gender stuff that the original Quantum Leap touched upon in really either sometimes overly simplistic, sometimes problematic, sometimes really questionable ways, Can Sam have sex as a woman in his body? What's going on with that? Many interesting and intriguing questions go on with that series that I think a modern update could really do and explore really, really well. So all of that had me excited. And then also the second thing that I think is going to be this series, well, I'll talk about it as I get into the review, because I think there's something that this series chose to do, namely that is a sequel series to the original Quantum Leap, not a complete reboot, that will be, I think, its biggest asset and its biggest hindrance for a number of reasons. Anyways, I've done all of this sort of intro. Let's actually talk about what this show is. I think this is a decent start to the show, but it is not one that has me super, super pumped going forward. I mean, I was super, super pumped for the show going in. After this, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of what I expected it as a sort of network television show and not something that's given the sort of HBO Max style treatment. And it's neither got me super pumped or excited, but neither did it so turn me off that I'm out on the series overall. Basically, and I'll get into some specifics with the characters and actors and choices, but I kind of just want to stick with the tone. This feels very network TV. When I go back and look at the original Quantum Leap, and at the time it was also sort of network TV sort of thing, but it has this 1980s cheese to it, this kind of campy fun vibe that just lends it this character and personality that carried on week to week in every single episode, even if the situations and the stories were completely different. And then obviously the relationship between Sam and Al really also carrying that forward too, but that unique kind of campy cheesy tone to it that I think really sold it is missing from this show, which is fine. It's a show made in the 2020s. It's going to be different in that sense, but it doesn't really replace it with any strong personality of its own. The show just feels like it has that network gloss that you see in a lot of network television shows. And honestly, it's why I don't really watch a lot of network TV shows anymore. I think the very few that I still watch are like the CW DC Arrowverse shows, and those are dying out for the most part. And even those I got very, very tired with in recent years for the same exact reason, that they are very formulaic, glitzy, glossy, network TV-esque. Again, that's fine. I am actually fine with Quantum Leap being kind of like, get them out quick, kind of problematic, just doing it on the fly sort of show. I actually kind of like those types of shows where they're like, let's make a bunch of these and see what sticks, especially when you do it with Quantum Leap, because the show, by its very nature, has to shift every single week to do something new. And so because of that, they're always kind of like, just like, there's always the sense of like putting down the track right in front of you as we make the show. And with this pilot, though, I don't get that like chaotic sense. I just get that like cookie cutter mold in a lot of just the vibe and the feel and the filming of the show, just like the look of it, and a lot of the like visual choices, as it were. It just feels very network television. That being said, there are some things that that do work for me within this pilot that have me strong enough to be intrigued. I do like that they do try to differentiate this show from the original Quantum Leap in a few distinct ways. Namely, we're seeing a lot more of what's going on in the present day. We get to see a whole team of people working to try to help out our main character. I believe his name is Dr. Ben Song, to get him sort of through these trials, and we sort of get to see the entire team sort of being like, what's going on here? What's this? I'm sort of confused by what's, like, you just get to see this a little bit more of an ensemble with this show. And while a lot of this premiere is just sort of getting us to know where these characters sit within that team dynamic and not really a lot more beyond that, I do think that is an encouraging choice to be like, okay, this is something that I could see falling flat on its face, but it's a choice that is showing enough confidence by the show. It's like, we're going to try something different, and I appreciate that concept. The other thing, too, that this show adds is an overriding mystery that has us question our main character in a way that the original Quantum Leap didn't. Because the main driving mystery of this is, because it is a sequel series to the original show, they know what happened to Sam Beckett, and this new Quantum Leap project has been built, and so Ben Song goes into the Quantum Leap Accelerator for mysterious reasons and decides to jump. And so there's this mystery about why did he decide to do that without telling anybody, and what's that mystery going on. So not only is it a mystery that our characters have to unravel, but even our main character, who is the person who made this choice, does not know, because his brain got scrambled. And so I do think that's again, something that could fall flat on its face, but has me intrigued enough, like, okay, this is an intriguing mythology and mystery that you can add to this, that I'm like, okay, I am curious to see what you're going to do with it. The thing that I think is going to be this show's, like I said before, biggest hindrance, and also its biggest asset in equal measure, is the fact that it is a sequel series. We get references, and we actually even see a photo of Scott Bakula here, where they bring up Sam Beckett. And I like that it's used as a sense of growing tension, because, like, look, Sam Beckett never made it home, as we know from that infamous series finale of Quantum Leap, and that sort of a thing. Like, there's very real danger for Ben because of this. So that I like that builds off it, and that allows the show to like build off the mythology of the original series in a way that can maybe add to it and add texture to it. Because while there was some mythology in the original show, it wasn't the main focus. And I think allowing the show to like build that and build off of that, I think is an intriguing choice that, again, could fall flat on its face, but has me intrigued enough to stick around. The place where it's going to be this show's detriment is that, number one, Dean Stockwell sadly passed away, so you're not going to be able to get him. And Scott Bakula himself, at least in this first season, has stated that he is not going to be appearing within the show proper, that he's not going to have any affiliation with the show going forward. Now, possibly that may change if the show gets to season 2 or season 3. You never know when Scotty Batts is gonna change his Scotty Batts mind. I don't know what I'm saying there anyways. So you never know. He could pop up. But because we know right now that he is not going to appear in the show, it feels a little bit fan servicey to have things like his image pop up in the show, without knowing if that's going to build anywhere interesting, especially when you're not going to have this, like, when is Scotty Bakula going to show up? Now, they also could be an asset because they don't have Scott Bakula. They can't rely on that sort of like star power to get people in on the show, so it may push them to be a bit more creative than they would have been otherwise. So again, can be an asset, can be a detriment. The thing that has me a little bit concerned is the episode ends, spoiler for the final few minutes of the episode of the premiere, is that they bring in, like, well, it's Al's daughter is going to be connecting to the show. So it does feel a little bit like, let's find a way to tie into the original mythology by adding a character that no one really knew or cared about. Let's have the daughter of this popular character so we can have some sort of ties to the mythology. And I'm like, ooh, that could go very badly. And feel very ham-fisted in like an attempt to like try to be connected to the main mythology, try to justify yourself into the main mythos of the original show without actually having doing anything that people would actually care about. It seems like trying to justify yourself rather than actually being able to build your own identity. So I'm concerned about that going forward. Talking more about this episode itself, the adventure that Ben's song is on is fun enough. It's sort of involving a heist storyline. And I didn't find the tale to be all that intriguing. It was like, he kind of cares about this one dude who has a family and whatever, as he's sort of like trying to fix this guy's life. Didn't really connect with me all that much, but partially that is because this episode is doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of setting up the larger mythos of the show. So what I hope is going into episodes beyond this, that the central story of the sort of anthology nature of the series takes a little bit more center stage, and we get to see like actual stories that I really, really care about. I'm willing to be forgiving of that in this premiere because, quite obviously, again, they have to set up so much conceptually and so many characters that the basic, like, main thrust of the story of him being in this heist situation, his first leap, was going to always be somewhat ancillary. So it's serviceable. It connects nicely to the theme and the mystery going on in sort of an emotional arc sort of way. But as its own, it's not all that interesting. But this does mean that the show has a chance to reinvent itself each and every week and do something new each and every week. And so there's a new chance for the show to really hook me each and every week. And so I think that there's signs that this wasn't bad while still trying to balance all of the other things going on. I'm like, okay, you didn't knock my socks off, but you had few fun action sequences, like where Ben's trying to like steer the stick shift of the car and trying to get away while the cops are following. Like, that was decently fun. Didn't knock my socks off, didn't make me go feel like, oh, this was great. But it was serviceable, and serviceable in a pilot is least doesn't discourage me, I think is probably the best way to put it. The other characters around here, like you have Ernie Hudson is interesting. You have Mason, I think their name is Mason Alexander Park, who is a non-binary character added into the show, which I'm intrigued about as well. They played Desire in Sandman, and I loved them there. So excited to see them getting to do a little bit more here. And we'll see if that character has more. Like, they are outside of the main two characters of Ben's song and Addison Augustine is wife. I forget exactly. Basically, his love interest / significant other / Al character in this show. I think she does a great job as well for what she's given. I think while I'm not a big fan of romance plots, I do think that like having them be lovers and that sort of like her like trying to trust him and care about him, but not really wondering why he went through the Quantum Leap Accelerator, I think is an interesting choice to add to that dynamic between Sam and Al. Ultimately, we'll see if that works. I kind of enjoyed the more platonic friendship between our two characters in the original show, but I'm not against a romance angle here if it adds to the series dynamic, which they're trying to play with so far. It might end up in soap opera land, but for here, it works decently well enough. Yeah, beyond all of that, like I said, this was a fine first episode. I am nervous that it will ultimately just feel cookie cutter and feel perfunctory and not really do anything particularly interesting with this storyline. But there are some concerns that I have from this first episode, but there was nothing so egregious in this first episode that really turned me off. And there was nothing so, there was a few things that I'm like, this could work out. It could fall flat on its face. It could work out. And I'm honestly curious to see how they're going to play it. My overall just biggest concern is it does not feel like it has the same character, just the same just base level like cheesy fun timeness to the show that the original had, that this probably was never going to recapture because the show isn't made in that like 80s period, but I don't think they replace it with anything beyond network gloss. And I think that is going to be this show's biggest hindrance. And I really hope that they are able to kind of have a little bit more fun, add a little bit more of that cheesy, like playful factor that the original show had in its future episodes. Because again, this pilot had a lot of work to do. So if they can add that in, if they can give it that texture, that character, that flavor, then I think this could be not necessarily something special, but something that at least stands out. If it doesn't do that, then I think it ultimately will just be another blah Hollywood reboot. So basically, long and short of it, I see potential with this pilot. It was not egregiously horrible, yet it does not have me so encouraged yet that I am really excited, which is disappointing in some sense because of how excited I was just at the concept of a Quantum Leap reboot, but at least it is not so terrible and fall flat on its facey that I'm out right on the first episode. So I'll leave it there. That's everything I have to say about this pilot episode. What I will also say is I'm not going to be reviewing the show week to week because there's too many shows going on right now, and this is a 22-episode series on network TV, which is a lot for me to deal with. So what I will probably do is, at the very least, I will do a review of the entire season once it ends, if it remains to be something that I want to talk about by the time the season ends, towards the end of this television network year. Or if the series starts getting really intriguing or something unique or special happens, like Scott Bakula was lying to us and shows up, then I'll review some of it then. But otherwise, for now, just plan on there being a season-ending review, and we'll go from there. The police are now after me, if you can hear them coming outside from my microphone, so I'm going to wrap out this review there. I hope you all live long and prosper, my friends, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this pilot for Quantum Leap.